We will. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another SGR webinar. I'm Carissa Dela Cruz. I'm the Director of Business Development for SGR, and really excited today because I have Brooks Williams here with me, and he is the author of Rising to Serve. And I'll drop a link for the book in the chat in case you all want to learn more or purchase the book to read. But he's going to talk to us a little bit. I want to encourage you to use the chat feature to introduce yourselves and let us know where you're from, and then also use the chat feature to ask any questions that you may have. And then at the end of the presentation, we will get to as many of those as we are able to with Mr. Williams. If we're not able to get to all of the questions, then we'll still try to follow up, and feel free to comment on the YouTube video with additional thoughts or questions or insights, etc. So we look forward to your participation. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Brooks.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for SGR for setting this up. And I really get to do two things this morning. I get to share about the book, and then I also get to share about some of the great news that's going on in the city that I have the privilege of working for. This book is kind of twofold. It really talks about what I see as a need for change in public administration, but it also allows me to really put a case study to practice to show what we've done to implement the things in this book and really make a difference in a community that needed it. So Rising to Serve, as it says, was really born out of a frustration that I had as I went into public administration. I'm not a lifelong public servant, but felt drawn to public service and am now almost finished with a doctorate in public administration and have a real passion for this. This book is meant to be, for us as practitioners, a battle cry to really begin to change a system. And it's a system that's failing. It's not only failing our citizens, but it's failing us as the practitioners of public administration. Our citizens and the taxpayers don't understand typically the work that we do, and that rises their frustration levels and really puts them in a place where they begin to critique us and put us under a microscope and really place demands on us as public administrators that we can't meet. And it's not because we don't want to. We say all the time in our organization, we will do anything that we are legally allowed to do to serve you if we have the money and the resources to do so. But without the money and the resources to do it, we simply can't. And there's a real disconnect there because what we are seeing in the public is a desire for more with also a demand to pay less. And we understand as public administrators, that's just not the way the world works. We're not immune from inflation and rising costs. And so we're being put in a position that it's really difficult to meet the demands of the public and at the same time do what we've all been called to do, which is be responsible public administrators. So the vision I've got for a new era in public administration, as the book says, is a radical departure from what we've typically seen as the status quo. It's an era where there's bureaucratic red tape, and we as administrators smash through that red tape, and we really begin to look at a way that we can be more innovative and effective and efficient in the roles that we have. This new era does demand from us as public administrators to be bold, for us to be proactive, and for us to, I'm going to use the term relentlessly pursue continuous improvement and create a government at the local level that's transparent, accountable, and above all, effective. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we measure effectiveness, because I think that's important for each local government entity to do. Grade themselves, present that to your public, show them how you are or are not meeting their needs, and breed a self-correcting environment with that transparency. So some of those continuous improvement success stories I'll talk about. I said I haven't always been in public administration. I have a varied background. I came from the private sector, went into service for the public first at an independent school district for the Hurst-Euless Bedford Independent School District, where I was the chief quality officer for them, and I was responsible for overall continuous improvement and academic and financial success of the district. And then I moved into city management with the city of Ferris. So we have applied these methodologies in the private sector, in the public sector, both in public education and now in the public sector for a municipality. And so I brought all of those experiences together and put them into the stories that you see within Rising to Serve, to not just talk about what needs to change, but to really begin to lay a groundwork for how you change it and to give a roadmap for us moving forward. And so let me walk through a little bit what we walked into in Ferris in 2019. Ferris was unfortunately a cesspool for negativity. Everything from boil water notices consistently. We lost water 3 separate times. And when I say lost water, I don't mean a line break in a portion of the city, but it was where 100% of our residents lost the ability to have water in their homes. We then had scandal after scandal within the city that had a loss of public trust from us. We were investigated by the state. This is a D Magazine article. Welcome to Ferris, Texas, where everyone hates each other. That's what we were known for in Ferris, is the town where everyone hates each other. A great thing to be known for, and really a great way to be able to attract businesses, if we're being honest. We've turned the page in Ferris, so we have begun to really bring about significant change, not just economically, but from the ground up at a public administration level. We're rebuilding trust with our customers. We don't call our customers citizens anymore. They are our customers. We look at this in a very different way now. How do we provide service so that our customers really begin to believe that they're getting a return for the investment that they're making into us as a local government? We've been extremely intentional through the methodology that I've laid out in Rising to Serve as to how we're going to go about serving our individual stakeholders and customers within our community. In 2019, as an example, the city of Ferris had not had a financial audit in 3 years. We had not reconciled a bank statement in 2 years. Prior to that, we had the same audit firm for 14 years. There were significant issues. We had 0 days of fund balance at the city of Ferris. I'll tell you, today we have over 160 days of fund balance. We have a AA- bond rating. We have no findings on our audit. We have made significant strides. The city of Ferris was also the first municipality. There have been several others since then, but was the first municipality to offer free basic health care for our citizens through a public-private partnership that does not cost our residents anything in tax dollars to them. They are able to pick up their phone, text a number, and within 60 seconds, they're connected to a practitioner, not an intake specialist, not a nurse, but a practitioner where they can receive medical care. We also have partnered with Mark Cuban's Pharmacy for low-cost drugs. So if there are chronic issues in our community, which there are as far as diabetes, high blood pressure, they can receive low-cost drugs through the Mark Cuban Pharmacy and this program. So we have worked to be extremely innovative in what we have done to provide more value to our residents. We have free public Wi-Fi throughout the city now for our residents. Connectivity is a huge issue that we saw through COVID and knew that we needed to address. And again, when we look at how do we provide more value for our residents, this was another way that we did it. City of Ferris also now runs its own EMS service. While that may sound not like a very impressive feat, for us it was a tough thing to get to. We had CareFlight for many years. We did not have to pay a subsidy to CareFlight, so we had zero cost EMS for a long time. CareFlight had to cancel our contract. We went to the county and asked to be a part of their contract. The county obliged, and approximately 3 weeks later, the county lost its EMS service as well. And so we were left facing, how do we now implement an EMS program in a 6-month period when COVID has delayed apparatus purchases to a 2-year lead time, when COVID has driven up the cost of EMS services, and when COVID has driven up staffing costs. So your average EMS salary went from $36,000 now to well over $50,000 during that COVID time period. How do we approach all of these issues? For us, having the framework that's enumerated in Rising to Serve is what helped us overcome these challenges. And in a 4-month period, launched an EMS program with a fully staffed EMS, with 2 ambulances, with medical direction, with our protocols, with everything in place, and DSHS approval to do that in a 4-month period, which is almost unheard of. So our ability to break the mold and to not operate as government as usual is what has helped us serve our customers. We don't accept the answer no in our organization. We look for ways to solve those problems and believe that no is an opportunity to do something differently. We have done things such as provide a $1.8 million park, which is a destination and an inclusive park, which the city has never had. To give you an idea, when we collect taxes each year, and we collect about $1 million in property taxes. That's all we collect in property taxes. To deliver a $1.8 million park to our residents is significant. And what we've decided is that our demographics are not going to dictate our destiny in the city of Ferris. And that's what Rising to Serve is about as well, is how do you get creative? How do you bring about change when for decades prior to, you've been told it can't be done, it won't be done, and there's nothing but roadblocks in your way. We've gotten creative with our EDC so that we can revitalize our downtown areas. And all of this is done through some core themes and concepts, which again, Rising to Serve talks about. It talks about the 7 different categories that we work through, which is leadership, strategy, and customers, which is what the leadership triad is. And then there's workforce, operations, and results, which is the results triad. All of that is underpinned by our core values and concepts. And measurement, analysis, and knowledge management, that line that you see under there is that 7th area that is critical for us. That is really where we talk about our processes, going back to the process, understanding what that process is, developing that process, measuring how effective the process is, and then at the same time changing the process if it's not meeting the needs that we have. So transformational leadership, this is critical in public administration today. As a leader in public administration, we are faced, and you all know this better than I do, with so many challenges. How we face those challenges is critical to our success. For us, what we have done is really enumerated for our staff, for our community, what our goal areas are as a community. And that's been critical to us. And Rising to Serve talks about that. You have to set goals. You have to set lofty goals. And there's a deliberate process to go through so that you can get to that place. These are just examples of the goals that we have in our city. Goal 1 is cultivate an environment conducive to strong, sustainable economic development. So there's 8 separate goal areas. I'll show you all 8 of them here real quick. 8 separate goal areas within our city. And in each of those goal areas are different sub goals or strategic objectives that we have. And that was created through surveys from our community, feedback from our elected body, your typical strategic planning process. So we had over 48 different sub goals, and in 2019 put that into a bold plan called 20 by 25. And that was, we were going to meet 20 of those 48 goals by 2025. As we approached 2025 and we were on track to meet those, we've now revamped that into 20 by 27, meaning we're going to now meet 27 of those 48 goals by 2027. We are on track to do that, and we measure those, and I'll show you later how we do that as well, and how that's important to really, again, reimagining what we do as public administrators. For so long, what I've seen is, for example, if a resident wants a piece of information, we have them submit a public information request, we review it, we give them the information. We've really flipped that model on its head for us. We present the information to our community in a in a customer-facing dashboard that sits on our website. We do that intentionally. If the information is available and we can track the information, and it gives us the ability to track our effectiveness and efficiency as an organization, we put it out there for those in the community to be able to see. So one of the questions I get when we talk about this is, how do public administrators effectively incorporate that strategic foresight into the planning process? And for me, I think it's important that public administrators need to stop reacting to crises and start anticipating them. And that's what this type of planning allows you to do. And that means you have to employ strategic foresight by continuously scanning the horizon for emerging trends and also threats. Being a YMCA pony in this industry is no longer going to help you be an effective administrator. You can't do what has always been done and be effective. It's about integrating scenario planning into every aspect of decision making that you have as a public administrator now. It's about ensuring that the organization is prepared for future possibility, and it requires a very significant cultural shift from short-term thinking into long-term thinking. And these innovative policies that I'm sharing with you from the city of Ferris were a game changer for us. It forced us to confront our inefficiencies and focus on real measurable improvements. So we even had shirts printed that say, "My facts don't care about your feelings." And what that was in an effort to do is we no longer talk about how we feel. We no longer talk about, well, I feel like this program is a success, or I feel like we should move in this direction. We want to see the data and the fact to drive us to a place that we can measure and show whether or not we are implementing effective programs for our citizens. So, my experience as a city manager and how it has shaped the perspectives that I'm presenting in this book, it really has been a constant battle for me against inefficiency and apathy. I've always been in a performance-based environment. And so transforming the city that I'm in now from a high turnover city with low morale, when I arrived, our average tenure was 3 months. That's the longest employee we were keeping was 3 months. It was insane to think that a city could function like that. We had to change those things. We had to gut our culture and really rebuild it from the ground up. And those experiences, for me, underscored the necessity of that strategic foresight that I'm talking about and the transformational leadership so that we can prove that significant change is possible in this environment, but it demands an unwavering commitment to hard work. And another question I usually get is, were there specific challenges that you faced and that really motivated me to kind of push this paradigm shift? And for me, it was what I talked a little bit about earlier, which is the YMCA pony attitude that existed. We're just going to follow the same path and do the same thing that we always have. We're going to put up rampant bureaucratic roadblocks that create inefficiency. There was the toxic work environment that was permeating. It was a community's distrust. All of these were motivators in it's time to do something different. Seeing talented employees leave because of the frustration in the system and witnessing firsthand the community's growing mistrust is what really made it clear that radical change was needed for our profession to move to the next level. Leadership development as a whole is something that we're incredibly intentional about. Our group, while some I think love to joke about, oh, we are part of a book club, they are, but it's with intentionality. So as a leadership team, we push each other to grow. And part of that comes from reading different books and growing as a leadership team with one another. Some of the books are related to government. You can see 90 Days in Government. Tactical Reload is written from the perspective of an officer. There's Patrick Lencioni books. There's A Complaint is a Gift. There's also a book in there, If Disney Ran Your Hospital. And I think the initial reaction from our group was, how does a Disney running your hospital book apply to local government? And it's really about customer service. It's about creating an environment that is driven primarily because you have customers that you are serving, and you have to have a radical belief system in place to function at a level that a Disney does to provide that customer service. So how do we glean pieces of information from those books and apply them to local government? And that has been incredibly effective for us. And it's something that I think is lacking. We're not intentional about our leadership development. We're not intentional about challenging one another. One of those Patrick Lencioni books is called The Advantage, and it talks about having healthy conflict. What you'll see in that picture is there are 2 blue chairs on the very bottom part. The requirement in our leadership meeting is if you sit in one of those blue chairs, you must disagree with things that are said by me. And in particular, me, because I'm the city manager and it's easy to just go along to get along and not challenge the boss. But sitting in one of those 2 chairs requires you to disagree, to poke holes in the ideas that are there. Why? Because it makes us better. When we don't just go along to get along, but we begin to challenge one another, we get better at what we're doing. This was a dynamic shift for a lot of them. You'll see somebody in that picture with a police jacket on. That's our director of the Department of Public Safety. For him, who comes from a quasi-military background, That's a difficult thing to challenge your superior, but it's also incredibly healthy when you do it in a way that is promoting that healthy conflict, like the book, The Advantage, talked about. We've done things like everybody on our leadership team and now our mid-level managers are all required to be Six Sigma certified. Why? No, we're not building widgets, which is really what Six Sigma was born out of. But we are implementing processes, and it allows us to look at, for example, permitting times. How do we reduce permitting times to an acceptable standard that others, not just us, but that others like developers believe should be in place? You've seen a lot of pressure from the legislature over the last several sessions to really begin to require cities on these shot clocks to get back to applicants. And so for us, we wanted to be ahead of the game. How do we get our processing times down from what they used to be, which was around 30 days, to now we can issue permits, at least our portion of touching those permits, in less than 2 days. And I'll show you on our KPI dashboard how we measure that. But that's incredibly important. How do you innovate? How do you continue to get better? So from a strategic foresight and innovation standpoint, we've talked a little bit about that, why it's important. But here's an example of a process chart that we utilized. This is for our building permit process. Our standard is 10 days or less. We're meeting that, we're exceeding that. But each of our processes that we do is laid out like this in the city. Every department area began with their top 3 key processes. There's going to be more in every department. There could be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. There could be 70 processes in a department. But we start with what we called our big 3 in each area, and we mapped it out. What was so interesting to see is, you want to know why we're inefficient? Is because we're siloed and we're not understanding how what we do impacts another area. So we had to break that down and really begin to understand that these processes are complicated and that they are impacting other areas, that if that domino falls, we didn't understand what it did down the line. And this now has given us the ability to really build cohesive processes that are streamlined, that we've reduced time, we've increased our customer satisfaction. And for us, what that means is now we have people wanting to do business with us. We've done the radical thing like build relationships. We have something called our communities of excellence, where we're going out and we're building relationships and talking about this very thing with our community partners, because we believe that their success is our success and our success is theirs as well. This is our mission, vision, and values. And this is something that I talk about in Rising to Serve, is you have to have a foundational you have to have a foundation and something to build on. And those mission, vision, and core values for us are everything. We tie everything back to our mission, our vision, and our values. If what we are proposing or what we are discussing does not fall in line with our mission, our vision, or our values, we simply don't do it. We abandon the conversation, because there's no way to integrate that into a process if it doesn't align with your mission, your vision, and your values. These are just a few of the examples of things that you can achieve when you remove roadblocks, when you live by those 7 categories and your core values. These are some things that just over the last several years we've been able to achieve when, again, we were told, no, you can't. No, you won't be able to. No, you won't be able to generate the money. No, you won't be able to generate the public trust. Nobody in this city passes a bond. You'll never be able to do those things. But through very specific and intentional practices, we've been able to achieve a great deal. Those are the strategic plans I talked to you about, the surveys that we give out to our customers. That's a little different in public administration, to go out and ask folks, how are you utilizing our services? What do you want to see? When we ask the question at the bottom right of the screen, what types of performance data interest you the most? And that's a different question for a municipality to ask its citizens, especially using the word performance. What type of performance data do you want? But we want our citizens and our customers to understand we are a performance organization. We want to perform well and show you how we're doing, because that's how we should be holding ourselves accountable. Does this work? What I would tell you is, for 21 years in the city of Ferris, we saw a flat or declining population growth. For the last 5 years, we have grown more in population, value growth, sales tax growth than the previous 21 years combined in this last 5-year period. We're now the number 26 city for growth in the DFW Arlington metro area, which is impressive for us. We have been extremely intentional about our workforce engagement. And when you ask what strategies do we employ for improving workforce engagement, what we do is we start by breaking down those toxic bureaucratic culture silos that have been built that stifle employee initiatives and really stifle morale. What you're watching or what you're seeing here is bringing our employees together to talk about very specifically what are the things that are working or what are not, what processes need improvement, what processes need to be established. That's important for us to do from a workforce perspective. So we regularly solicit and act on employee feedback. The interesting part is if you survey your employees, you need to do something with those surveys. Otherwise, you create a culture of apathy where they believe there's no point in saying anything because nothing's going to happen based on that feedback. It's about creating a culture where that continuous improvement is ingrained in every employee's mindset. We talk about all the time, raise your hand and say that it's stupid. If what we're doing is not working, raise your hand and say so. And so our employees we call it everything from our janitorial crews all the way up to our senior leadership will do that. They will raise their hand and say, this is stupid. This is not working. As leaders, how do you foster a culture of continuous improvement? I think you need to be the leader. You need to be the catalysts for change as those leaders. You're going to have to model the behavior that you want to see. You're going to have to set clear, measurable goals for your organization. You're going to have to create a performance environment, which again is different than what a lot of us are used to. We now have a performance pay plan where you have to meet metrics on your performance plan every year in order to be eligible for a pay raise. These are small things that we put in place to really push a culture of performance. With those clear and measurable goals, you have to be transparent about your successes and your failures. Be open about those things. Continuous improvement, which is what Rising to Serve really pushes and talks about, requires a real relentless focus on data-informed decision making. And I'm intentional when I say data-informed and not data-driven. I don't think data can be the singular piece you use to drive your decisions. I think it needs to be a piece that informs your overall decision making. We've done things like partner with Liberty University to create certified public servants for folks to continue to grow them, the performance plans that we talked about, and then our results. We've also gotten creative. We've started an ambassador program where we bring in community members and train them on every facet of how we work as a government. That is because we know that if people don't understand, they criticize. And when they criticize, it makes our job even more difficult. So we've begun to bring people in, pulled the curtain back and showed them how we operate as an organization. We do podcasts regularly to talk about what's going on in our city. Why do we do things the way we do? Why is it we budget the way that we do? Why is it that we don't operate like the federal government and print money? Where does all of that come from? And why does the city function the way that it does? That has increased our ability to connect with our residents and decreased our number of complaints. Putting out our dashboards has also been something that's been incredible as far as reducing the number of complaints and increasing the level of knowledge and understanding. It's no secret that most residents, most citizens, most customers do not understand how we work. They do not understand the business that we're in, and that breeds frustration. So we really set out to say, how can we put information out there that helps them understand how we are doing? So everything is gold, everything has a performance metric to it, and they can see if it's green, yellow, or red, and if we're performing the way that we should be. Each of our executive leadership team members has responsibility for a different area of that dashboard, and it shows their area's performance, and that aggregates up into an overall city score. And I'm happy to, if any of you want to reach out one-off, I'm happy to show you that dashboard. I just, with the limited time today, I won't be able to do that. So the writing challenges. What was the most challenging aspect of writing the book? I would probably say it was confronting and then articulating the unvarnished truth about how at least I feel and others that I've had the privilege of working with feel about working in public administration, our failures, what we also see as the public's misunderstanding and failures, and how do we try to begin to align those two rather than have an us versus them mentality. It's not easy to criticize a system that you're part of, but I think it was necessary to provoke some real change. And so balancing my responsibilities as the city manager with the demands of writing this was a significant challenge, but I think almost therapeutic. And then future direction and broader impact. My hope really from this as we wrap this up is that this book will kind of jolt public administrators, cities, elected officials, community leaders, and citizens, because there's portions of this book that talk directly to the citizens. And I want it to be a wake-up call that pushes us to embrace some transformational leadership and some strategic foresight, and really to begin to remove some of the apathy that is in place by our customers. I want it to inspire really a movement towards a more innovative, accountable, and effective public service. And then, I get asked, what's the reception been from your peers about this book? And I think the reception's been a mix of enthusiasm and a little bit of resistance as well. A lot of the peers appreciate the brutal honesty. If you read the book, I'm a very direct person. So you'll see some what I would consider brutal honesty through this. They appreciate the call to action, but they recognize that there is a need for significant change. But there's also that faction of people that are just entrenched in the current system, and critiquing it makes it uncomfortable. But the public response has been largely positive, and our customers and citizens have expressed a relief that we at least understand where they're coming from. My advice for you, I'll leave us with this. I know we're running out of time, but it's that true performance excellence transcends the mere pursuit of any award, which is also any type of recognition from anybody, but it transcends any of that. It embodies a profound cultural transformation, one that's deeply rooted in valuing people, driven by a clear purpose, and committing to perpetual progress. This journey is about creating meaningful impact and fostering a legacy of continuous improvement, where the ultimate reward is the collective growth and advancement of our organization and community. And that journey that I'm talking about is this journey of public administration, serving people, and trying to make these places that we work better than they were when we found them. And so I will be happy to take any questions that popped up or about the book, or answer anything about this presentation at this point.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. That was excellent and informative and insightful as well. Dina, to answer your question in the chat, yes, we actually, I'll put a link in the chat to our YouTube page, but the entire webinar will be available to watch again or share with your colleagues or friends immediately. So it's live streamed right now, so it will be available right now. And Michelle, thank you so much. We appreciate you participating in this. And I just want to say, does anybody have any other questions, or is everybody ready to get back to work? Well, then I will not. Oh, thank you, Tommy. Thanks for being here. Tommy, I think this might be the first webinar you haven't asked a question, though. Maybe that's those are kudos, right? Oh, nope, we're waiting for it. Perfect. All right, Brooks, did any of your team have pushback to the dashboard idea? Great question.
That is a great question, and the answer is yes. Short answer is yes. They absolutely had some pushback in the beginning, because again, you're really pulling back the curtain on what's going on in their specific areas. And here's the benefit to it, though. They sat down and with their teams, and then us, we allowed them to come up with those key performance indicators that go into the dashboard. So they had a significant say in what it was they were going to present. So the benefit to that was, when those metrics showed that they weren't meeting objectives, it's very easy to look back and say, but these are metrics that you came up with. We didn't force these down on you. You came up with them. So what we're doing is grading you against what you said are the metrics that you should be performing at and where you should be performing. And so that was a very uncomfortable thing at first for folks, but it's almost welcomed now. where we are trying to leverage AI for the good. And so what we've built now into our dashboard is an AI component that trends into the future based on the past performance. And so we can see not only where they are performing today, even if it happens to be above where their baseline performance level should be, but if that's starting to trend in a direction that could eventually lead them to a bad place, we can see that and start to have those conversations. And what it's doing is really opening their eyes to, especially at a leadership level, where we go from the, oh no, everything's fine, everything's working, there's no issue. We start to look at that data and see that the trend is going there. They go and they look in and they go, I had no idea that this person being on maternity leave, for example, has broken the process in these areas, and we are beginning to trend in a negative direction. Or I had no idea that the new employee hadn't been trained in these specific areas, and now we're trending in the wrong direction. And so it has now become a welcomed part of what we do every week. We meet as an executive leadership team every week, and we go through these dashboards and talk about them. And then we get into, here's the nerd side in us with our Six Sigma, but we get into root cause analysis, fishbone diagrams, 5 whys, all of those things to really understand how we got to where we are now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Tommy also said thank you. And then in case you didn't see it, Brooks, Chris asked, is there a plan for the book to become an audio format?
There is. I just haven't gotten to that yet, but there is a plan for that to be offered. Yes.
Great. Well, I'm going to do one last call for questions. We have a few more minutes, so we can address maybe 1 or 2 more if anybody has any. But I'll go ahead and put this is the link to the SGR YouTube channel. And then also next week, we have Micah Gaudette back to talk about AI for clerks. And so I'm going to put the link to register in the chat as well, and you'll receive that via email, but just in case this is easier, it's also in the chat. But we hope you'll join us for that webinar and look forward to seeing everyone. And I just want to do a special thank you again to Mr. Williams for being here and sharing with us today. We really appreciate your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.